Part 57. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 563. Mu Yangling hugged the little bear and cried hard. When the little bear saw his mother crying, he closed his eyes and cried with a wow. After crying for a long time, seeing his mother not stopping, he stopped and looked at he finally smelled the stench wafting around him. He pushed his mother's head with some disgust, with tears still hanging on his face, looking a little pitiful. Seeing this, Xiaobao hurriedly struggled to climb down from the embrace of the wet nurse to help his younger brother push the ant. Mu Yangling turned the guilt and sadness in his heart into tears, and looked up at the two children in a daze. Li Jinghua hurriedly asked the two nurses to take the child down, let them take a hot bath for the two children, and put on clean clothes, then took Mu Yangling's hand. Okay, I know you are sad, but you don't blame you for this matter, and you don't have to blame yourself, we just need to take care of them more in the future. Mu Yangling lowered his eyes and sat blankly for a while, then nodded and said, Don't worry, sister-in-law, I have some calculations in my heart. Li Jinghua sighed, and stroked Mu Yangling's shoulder. Mu Yangling frowned slightly. What's the matter? Li Jinghua hurriedly asked after seeing her. Mu Yangling shook his head slightly, and said, Sister-in-law, I'll go wash up first, and you should go back and rest soon. Li Jinghua suddenly screamed, and pulled Mu Yangling over to examine her back carefully, only to find that there was a knife wound on the shoulder obliquely to the back. She tore the cloth carefully, only to find that the wound was still there oozing blood. Li Jinghua's face turned slightly pale, and said, I'll call you a doctor. He said that he hurried out. Mu Yangling opened his mouth, but he could only turn his head and tell Li Shun, go ask the mother-in-law to fetch hot water. Even if it is medicine, it must be washed first. In the end, it was Li Shun and a woman with some medical knowledge who administered the medicine to Mu Yangling. Li Jinghua stood aside and watched. Seeing that Mu Yangling had more than one injury, his eyes turned slightly red. Mu Yangling fell asleep directly on the pillow. Even the doctor sitting in the outer room had to admire Mu Yangling's ability. It was amazing to be able to fall asleep under such circumstances. Mu Yangling didn't wake up until noon the next day, when the guards came in and reported, the guards who died in battle have been cremated and buried, and the villagers who died in the mountain were bought by Mr. Zhan, and all of them were collected. Fourth Grandma, do you want to go down the mountain, have a look? Mu Yangling shook his head slightly, no, the situation is uncertain at this time, and too much contact with them will not be good for them. You invite their village chief and a few elders in the village who can talk, and I will talk to them directly. They negotiate. Bailey came in and asked Mu Yangling to make up his mind. Fourth Grandma, Uncle Fij sent me a letter, asking if you want to go back to Jingzhou Mansion or to Linen City. Although Qi Ziyuan occupied Linen City, he didn't stay in it for long. After leaving some of the soldiers stationed there, he led the soldiers to conquer and recover the country. Therefore, he could not guarantee the safety of Linen Mansion 100%. But the Jingzhou Mansion and the other three northern mansions are the safest places, because that is Qi Ziyuan's original site. That's why I asked this question. Mu Yangling sighed, although Jingzhou Mansion is good, it's too far away. It's a month's journey, and anything can happen. Let's go to Linen Mansion. Mu Yangling wanted to stay here, but this place was too secluded. If the other party surrounded the place fiercely, they would be trapped. So, when do we leave? Mu Yangling was silent for a while, and said, the day after tomorrow. Today and tomorrow are enough for them to arrange everything. The village chief came in with a plain belt tied around his waist, and several elders in the village followed behind him with sad faces. They didn't dare to sit when they saw Mu Yangling, but stood far away. Mu Yangling motioned them to sit down. The village head and the elders looked at each other and sat down tremblingly. At first they were confused, thinking that there were bandits trying to rob Zhu's family, but the 3,000 soldiers who came to the rescue last night clearly let them know that the identity of Zhu's family is not simple, maybe their surname is not Zhu at all, and they are not a local businessman. But several people were tactful and didn't ask. Although Mu Yangling brought the two children to kneel down to them yesterday, the murderous aura of those soldiers still made them unwilling to take chances, so they were cautious about Mu Yangling. Mu Yangling didn't explain his origin, but said, "The villagers were injured and died because of me, so I will be responsible for them." Mu Yangling handed a booklet to Lishun and gave it to the village head, saying, "For the 42 people who died in battle, my family will pay 20 taels of compensation. This is a one-time payment. Each person has 5 taels of silver alimony per year. Those with wives and children, each child under the age of 16 will receive 5 taels of silver a year for maintenance. Those who are injured will receive 15 taels of silver per person. I will pay for their medical expenses. Those who are seriously injured and disabled will get 10 taels of silver per person per year, and the medical expenses will be calculated separately." As for the other families in the village, they were really surprised this time. "I still have some coarse grains here, which are all harvested from the wasteland last year. Later, I will ask people to send them to each household according to a certain proportion," the village chief. "If you have any other requirements, you can also ask me." The village head stared blankly at the booklet in his hand. Seeing him in a daze, an elder pulled him away, then raised his head and smiled at Mu Yangling flatteringly. "Fourth Grandma, this pension is very generous, we have no objections." The village chief also came back to his senses, and said, "Fourth Grandma is kind, but I can't make decisions on this matter alone. I have to go back and ask the villagers for their opinions." Mu Yangling nodded, "It should be." Mu Yangling thought for a while, and continued, "The food borrowed before will be free, but I hope you can continue to rent my land." The village chief looked up at Mu Yangling. Mu Yangling said, "Those pensions and alimony may seem like a lot, but in fact, they are enough to feed and clothe them seriously. I don't want anyone to develop a lazy temper because of this. Besides, if you want to live better, you still have to be kind land. You plant sweet potatoes first this year, and I will ask people to buy them, and I will not lower the price. Next year, I will try to bring some corn seeds from the northern regions. If the villagers want to, besides planting wheat and rice, they can also try to grow corn. As long as you work hard, you will always have a good life. If you have any difficulties in the future, I can help you, and I will definitely help you." The village chief's eyes were slightly red, and he choked up and asked, "Fourth Grandma, can we really grow corn?" Mu Yangling nodded slightly. "Corn seeds are also divided into 2 types now, let's see which one you want to plant then." The village head got up and knelt down to Mu Yangling, and several elders also knelt down one after another. Mu Yangling hurriedly stepped forward to help them up. His eyes were also slightly red. "Actually, I should thank you all. Fourth Grandma doesn't know how important these things are to us. They can make our whole village survive in troubled times. Even those who don't have a man in the family can survive. But life is only once. For Mu Yangling, a person has only one life. Maybe he died and was reincarnated with memory, which made Mu Yangling more awe and respect for life. There is only one life, even if you can reincarnate, it will be another life. Therefore, she felt guilty, and she owed 42 lives and 42 families all at once. This is the first time someone has died because of her. No matter in her previous life or in this life, her worldview, outlook on life and values do not allow her to accept this kindness as she should. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 564. When Mu Yangling raised his eyebrows and left, many villagers saw him off at the entrance of the village. They resented Mu Yangling a little at first, thinking that if it weren't for them, their family members might not have died. But after the village chief announced those compensation measures, They felt grateful to Mu Yangling again, feeling that no matter what, the other party did not abandon them, but gave enough for their family to live in troubled times. The family members voluntarily went to protect Zhu's family, and the last bit of resentment dissipated. Mu Yangling left Chenming and Chenming's family behind, and he will distribute the annual pension, and he will also take care of the affairs in the field. In order to avoid corruption and bribery, Mu Yangling not only beat Chenming before leaving, a supervisory measure was also announced. The distribution of pensions has been recorded in the book. If anyone can't receive it on time and in the amount in the future, the village head can tell me. Villagers who have been wronged can also entrust the shops in the town to bring me a message, Mu Yangling said. The shopkeeper of the shop has no interest in entanglement with Chenming, everyone can rest assured. That shop was built by Mu Yangling on a temporary basis to make it easier for the villagers here to deliver messages to her, so the shopkeeper was selected from the mansion, and she would not let one person serve for too long, and the other party would not do it for some benefit. And offended her. After doing this, Mu Yangling took Li Jinghua and others to leave in a carriage. The little bear must have been frightened, since he woke up and fell asleep. He was clutching his mother's clothes tightly, and he had to lean in her arms. Li Shun knew that the fourth grandma was injured, so he kept coaxing him, "Third young master, can I hug you? I can hug you to see the grass outside." Little Xiong looked at Li Shun for a while, struggled for a while, and then resolutely buried his head in his mother's arms. Mu Yangling smiled slightly, patted him on the back, and said to Li Shun, "Okay, he only has such a little strength, yes. My wound is fine." Mu Yangling hugged his son with the same weight as an ordinary person holding an egg, which naturally did not hinder the wound on his back. Little Xiong saw that no one had taken him away from his mother, so he raised his head and looked outside curiously. Li Chun slightly opened a corner to let him see the scenery outside. After all, Little Bear has a lively personality, so he couldn't sit still for a while, and kept moving towards the window. Seeing him like this, Mu Yangling felt so pitiful, so he picked him up and put him on the side by the window, with his arms still around his shoulders. Little Xiong felt uneasy, looked up at his mother from time to time, and saw that she was always looking at him with a smile, so he felt relieved, opened the curtain boldly, pointed to the flowers and plants outside and said, "Ah." No one can understand. But Li Shun still nodded approvingly, and responded with a few words from time to time, "It's really beautiful, green grass." Not only Little Bear was scared, but Little Treasure was also a little panicked. He always wanted to be by Li Jinghua's side, and he didn't even bother to look for his favorite brother. Even if she fell asleep, she would wake up crying every once in a while, and only after seeing her mother could she continue to sleep with peace of mind. This made Li Jinghua feel distressed and relieved at the same time. Because her son was always clamoring to play and sleep with Little Bear, she thought her mother was less important to him than Little Bear. When Kui said in a low voice, "Grandma, don't worry, you are the most important thing in the second young master's heart. The third young master is the second young master's younger brother, and children prefer to play with children." Li Jinghua nodded slightly, hugged Xiaobao and patted it lightly, and said, "The doctor said he would take the medicine for a few days. Second young master is not in good health, so he was quite seriously frightened this time. He probably will have to drink for 5 or 6 days." When Kui hesitated and said, "But just now Li Shun came to look for slaves and said that it was the fourth grandma's suggestion, telling us not to drink. Give the second young master the medicine for such a long time, and 4 doses of medicine for palpitations are enough. If the second young master is serious, just drink 2 more doses, usually coax him more, take him for a walk around the convoy, and use diet to recuperate." He also said that the medicine is 3-point poison. Li Jinghua kissed his sleeping son, and sighed after hearing the words, "Just do it according to the fourth grandma's method." Those doctors only want to be innocent, and blindly ask for more medicine. The child is terrified. As long as we make him feel at ease, he will always be safe. I can slow down. After all, looking at his son's waxy little face, Li Jinghua was both sad and hurt. Obviously his body is getting better soon, but every time he encounters troubles at the door, why does my little treasure have so many disasters? How difficult is it? When Kui hurriedly said, "Don't worry, Grandma, when we return to Linen City, we can take care of the second young master with peace of mind. The medicinal recipes that the fourth grandma found are all good." Li Jinghua sighed, and said, I hope this time I can really settle down." When Mu Yangling and others returned to Linen City was agitated, and the remaining officials and family members knew that if there were no accidents, Qi Ziyuan would be the next emperor. Then Li Jinghua may be the next queen, so everyone can't help being restless. Before entering Linen City, Bailey came over and asked them where they wanted to live after entering the city. This time, Bailey mainly asked Li Jinghua. Regarding the question of war security, Bailey would leave Li Jinghua aside and ask Mu Yangling, but this question should be asked of Li Jinghua, who will be more valuable in the future. Li Jinghua knew that what he wanted to ask was whether to live in the palace. Li Jinghua lowered her eyes and thought for a while, then turned her head and asked Mu Yangling, "Aling, where do you think is safer?" Because of going through so many adventures, Li Jinghua has temporarily suppressed glory and others to safety. Most of the people left in the palace are old people, and today's fate is undecided. Li Jinghua understood, and said to Bailey, "Go back to Qi Mansion." The Wu family and others were sent back to the Qi Mansion after Qi Ziyuan attacked Linen City, but they had no freedom of entry and exit. The guards outside were guarded by a group of guards. It was called protection, but it was also a kind of supervision and imprisonment, because they were afraid that they would get carried away, do something that is not conducive to the reputation of the Qi family. Mu Yangling and the others were sent directly to the Qi Mansion. This time, MRS Wu personally took MRS Wu and MRS Wu to wait at the second gate. In Qi Ziyuan's hands. Wu's posture was very low, but Li Jinghua was not satisfied, and still respectfully asked the other party to go back to the main house first, and then brought Mu Yangling back to her yard. Mu Yangling didn't speak the whole time, and Wu and the others got used to ignoring Mu Yangling. From the time Mu Yangling got married to the present, she could count with 10 fingers what she said in front of Wu and the others. So everyone's eyes were on Li Jinghua, who had a high status. Everyone thinks that Mu Yangling is an introverted village girl with little knowledge. The only thing she did was to refuse the late emperor to give Qi Heiran a marriage. After that, Mu Yangling behaved mediocrely, no performance. So everyone habitually ignored her, and Li Jinghua could only smile wryly. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 565. Back in her yard, Li Jinghua whispered, I know you are impatient to deal with them, but how many people are watching now? After all, she is our elder, she often comes out, walks and sits, talking is your attitude. Mu Yangling hugged the little bear in his arms, and said lazily, we both hate each other, so why bother to torture each other? Sister-in-law, don't worry, no one in Linen City knows my temperament, they all think I'm a piece of wood. Since that's the case, why not just continue to be a log like in the past? Isn't there still a sister-in-law in front of it? Isn't that the general telling you to hide your clumsiness and act cheaply? You shouldn't have to pretend anymore, right? Mu Yangling laughed and said, sister-in-law misunderstood elder brother. What elder brother told me to hide was martial arts. He didn't care about my behavior in these inner house matters. It's because I don't love these things, like those beautiful jewelry, clothes, what is in fashion, you just need to ask the lady from the shop outside to come in and ask, and you can choose what you like. How can you spend a whole day or several days repeatedly just for one thing to wear? If I have that time, I might as well go to Zhuangzi to see my experimental field, or inspect the manor shop. If these things are done well, I will teach the children, and I can take them out to play when I have time. See the worldly scenery outside. She really couldn't understand that a few pieces of clothing and jewelry could lead a day's life, leaving the child completely in the care of servants and wet nurses, and only asked a few words and looked at the child during lunch, dinner, and bedtime. For Mu Yangling, going out to play and chatting with 2 or 3 friends is to adjust. Life, family, and career should be the focus of life. The children and husband are her family, and her career is now divided into 2 parts. The short-term career is to protect Li Jinghua and Xiaobao, so that Qi Xiaoyuan and his brother can conquer the world with peace of mind. Her long-term career line is to cultivate high-yielding seeds. Research more advanced farming techniques and tools. Li Jinghua was stunned for a while after hearing Mu Yangling's attitude towards life, and then asked, "According to what you say, my 20 years seem to have been for nothing." Mu Yangling said with a smile, "Everyone has different goals, and everyone is good at different things. I don't like to gossip with them because I don't like to be bound by those rules, and I prefer to walk in the fields. Sister-in-law will be the most honorable woman in the world in the future. What you are doing now is your own career." Mu Yangling thought for a while, and felt that those women were also opening up contacts for their husbands, sons, and families, so he nodded and said, "I was a little narrow-minded before. Gossiping, talking about clothes and jewelry is just a way for them to work." Then he proudly said, "I don't need to do this. When Heiran comes back, I will tell him that he can open up his contacts in the future. I still prefer to farm." Li Jinghua just lowered her head and smiled. If Qi Xiaoyuan can really ascend to the throne, then Qi Heiran is undoubtedly the most honorable person besides Qi Xiaoyuan. Of course he doesn't need to manage contacts anymore, and Qi Heiran has always loved Mu Yangling, so of course she doesn't have to wrong herself to do what she doesn't like thing. After Mu Yangling and Li Jinghua expressed their attitudes, they nestled in the Zayahua courtyard with peace of mind and brought their 2 children, and took them to the small garden to play from time to time. On the second day after Li Jinghua came back, Mrs. Wu gave her the account books and the keys to the treasury of the Qi mansion, saying that she was the eldest daughter-in-law and she should be the head of the house. The whole Qi mansion seemed to be beautiful and harmonious, as if the previous confrontation had never happened. Li Jinghua was also very respectful to the Wu family. Mu Yangling couldn't help but be speechless when he saw it, thinking that this kind of life was definitely not something he could do. Past. Of course, she can also lie without changing her face. In her previous life, these were all necessary to complete the task, but if the most daily communication in life is also turned into a task to complete, what kind of life will she live? It is precisely because she has always clearly separated work and life that she disdains acting in life. At least she does not want to let herself live with a mask completely. The interior of the Qi mansion is harmonious, but the outside is full of waves. Now, Qi Heiran has recovered and occupied the southwest and northwest areas, and Qi Xiaoyuan has also forced the second prince, Qin Peng, and his party to Chengdu Mansion, and all the areas in the south of the Yangtze River that were occupied by rebels have also been recovered, only the area north of Linan City and Zhongling Mansion. It has not been returned yet. From the north of Xingzhou Mansion to Jingzhou Mansion was originally the land of Longxing, and it has always been under the control of Qi Xiaoyuan. Needless to say, 2/3 of the north of Linan City is in the hands of General Yuan. With this person's character, as long as Qi Xiaoyuan unifies the country and distributes rewards to General Yuan, he will definitely bow his head and become a minister. There is no need to worry about the remaining 1/3, it is only the area of a prefecture. Qi Xiaoyuan can send an army to take it back. The area around Zhongling Mansion is now full of bandits, and it will be sooner or later to take it back with the previous offensive of the Qi brothers. Thing. Therefore, Qi Ziyuan's ascension to the throne is a sure thing, and the only thing left is to see if he can come back alive from the Chengdu mansion. In the past, Mrs. Li and others were taken away, and Mrs. Wu and others were imprisoned in the Qi mansion. People inside could not get out, and people outside could not get in. Moreover, because the relationship between Mrs. Wu and his stepson Qi Ziyuan was not good, everyone he didn't dare to please her hastily, so Linan City was still relatively quiet. But now Li and her son are back. Looking at the posture, the Li family and the others were actually sent away by Qi Ziyuan one step ahead of time. The Wu family is not easy to please, but Li's place is very simple. If there is no accident, the Li family will probably be the future queen. It would be good for them and their husbands and sons to show their faces in her presence. So many people began to send posts to Li's house, wanting to visit. Only a few thoughtful minds were the first to think of, Qi Ziyuan sent away Mrs. Li one step ahead of time. Could it be that he wanted to rebel before Qi Feng's death, sent away his wife and children, but left his father behind? Qi Ziyuan's character, there is a problem with filial piety. And Fan Siwen is one of them, but like most people, she only dared to think in her heart and didn't say it out loud. But when she quarreled with Mrs. Ya again, Mrs. Ya mentioned her capable nephew, Fan Siwen still couldn't help bringing out 3-point emotions. Fan Zijin happened to be there at the time, and seeing the disdain in his father's eyes, his heart sank slightly. That night, for the first time ever, he went to Fan Siwen's study to talk to him about political affairs for a long time. Look, but Yanmo still felt that the cold air on his young master was a bit heavy. When Fan Siwen returned to his study, he wrote to Qi Ziyuan and Qi Heiran, telling them that they owed him another big favor, and they must give him a high official and generous salary in the future. And Fan Siwen was still a little dizzy in the study, not understanding the point and purpose of his son pulling him to talk so much in the middle of the night. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 566. When Qi Heiran received the letter, he was rushing to Chengdu Mansion with his army. He came to read it twice and didn't see any hidden content, so he received it aside. When Qi Ziyuan received the letter, he also studied it twice, and when he was sure that it was not entrained, he frowned and put it in the special box for the letter. He was a little confused about the meaning of Fan Zijin's letter, and planned to ask after he went back. After several days of effort, Qi Heiran finally brought a large army to join Qi Ziyuan. The two brothers met for the first time after 3 years of separation. What Qi Ziyuan meant was that it would be enough to force the second prince and Prime Minister Qin out of the Chengdu mansion. Although there are hidden dangers in letting the second prince go, but the Great Zhou has been in chaos for so many years, the people are tired of fighting, and the soldiers are exhausted. It is really not easy to continue. Qi Heiran was unwilling to let them go just yet. He hadn't avenged a Ling yet. Didn't he rush over here just to kill the second prince and Prime Minister Qin? So he tried his best to say, "Brother, you only need to return to the court as a teacher, leave me 20,000 people, and I will definitely knock down the second prince and Prime Minister Qin to you." The second prince has Guo's blood. Even though he committed suicide to rebel, it caused people to betray their relatives, but as long as Dezhou still has a trace of blood, the country may be unstable, not to mention that there is a Qin Xiang in it. Brother, if we can kill Prime Minister Qin, the hearts of the people will be convinced. Qi Ziyuan was silent for a while, and said, "The second prince and the others have about 50,000 imperial troops in addition to Xixia's army. Are you sure that 20,000 people can take them down? You know, the poor should not chase after them. We will lose a lot." This is also the reason why Qi Ziyuan is willing to let them go. Before Qi Ziyuan had nothing, so he rushed forward in one go. Now he owns most of the country and is only one step away from success. On the contrary, The former second prince has now been forced to Chengdu. And then it is the territory of Xixia. Chi Heiran chuckled, brother, who said that we are going to force them? They are all raised by their fathers and mothers. Most of the forbidden soldiers are soldiers from Jiangnan and the central area. Do you think they are really willing to follow the second prince into exile in Xixia? Wait, you guys, as soon as I left, I told them to disarm and not kill. They could be sent back to their hometowns, or they could continue to serve as soldiers. It all depended on their wishes. I only took the heads of the second prince and Prime Minister Qin. I see how many people are willing to follow them. Qi Ziyuan was dumbfounded, patted his younger brother on the shoulder for a while and said, not bad, not bad, now he is more thoughtful than what brother thought. Qi Heiran became complacent, and Qi Ziyuan couldn't help smiling when he saw it, thinking that if he had a tail at this time, it must be cocked up and wagging. Brother, you will be enthroned when you go back. Qi Ziyuan paused for a moment, and said, we still have to discuss and choose a good date. Heiran, brother, I hope you can come back then. Qi Heiran slapped his chest loudly, and assured him, don't worry, brother, I will definitely be able to go back. Qi Ziyuan smiled, and Qi Heiran smiled flatteringly and said, brother, it may take a long time for me to go back. After you go back, help me take care of Aling. If you and your sister-in-law move into the palace, you will also take care of her, bring it so that she won't be bullied outside. She's just a lump of elm, she can move her hands well, but she can't move her mouth well, and she won't sue, she won't even know when she's being bullied. Seeing his younger brother like this, Qi Ziyuan couldn't help shaking his head and laughing, okay, you are leading an army of hundreds of thousands outside, and you are my direct brother, who dares to bully your wife. Thinking of the Wu family and others in Qi's mansion, he sneered and said, don't worry, your wife won't suffer. Qi Heiran breathed a sigh of relief. He was really worried that Mrs. Wu would bully Mu Yangling with her mother-in-law. After ascending the throne, you will be rewarded based on your merits. Heiran, what kind of title do you want? This is hard to say to the people below, but they are brothers, so there is nothing difficult to discuss. Qi Heiran tilted his head and said, you can make me the county king. Qi Ziyuan raised his eyebrows, and Qi Heiran lowered his voice and said, brother, do you really plan to only want the country of the great Zhou? Now the western part occupied by Xixia, Dali in the south, and the northern part occupied by Jingguo are all the country of our Han people. One day it will be taken back. The elder brother has become the emperor, and he will definitely not be able to fight here and there. When the time comes, I will go to be a general and take it back, and then you can make me a prince again. Qi Ziyuan laughed loudly, how did you know that I was going to make you a prince from the beginning? I'm your own younger brother, if you don't make me your prince, who will you make? Qi Heiran's eyes widened. Qi Ziyuan rubbed his head and said, you are right, you are my younger brother, so I will reserve the position of prince until you regain the lost land. Qi Heiran nodded triumphantly, and did not forget to confess, brother, you must remember that when you make me the county king, you must also make Aling the princess, and at the same time, we will be named together. What Qi Ziyuan wanted to say was immediately blocked by Qi Heiran's happy expression. Forget it, Heiran has a simple mind, even if someone provokes him, he may not be provoked, so why bother to remind him? Brother, Qi Heiran saw that he didn't listen to him, so he pushed him. Understood, Qi Ziyuan said with a smile, I know that your husband and wife are deeply in love, don't worry, the will must be made at the same time. Qi Heiran became itchy, brother, do you think I should tell Aling now, or save it as a surprise for her? Qi Ziyuan saw that the topic was getting more and more biased, but he didn't try to pull it back, but just followed his words, let's tell her to give her a surprise now, and let you have a lot of fun. Qi Heiran took it very seriously, thinking that Mu Yangling would feel the same joy as him. He couldn't sit still, and wanted to go back and write a letter with her. Chi Ziyuan pressed him down, and said, "Our brothers will be separated in the future, and we will drink with elder brother today, so when will the letter not be written?" He said again, "After the letter is written, hand it to me, and I will hand it to her when I go back. There is no need to use a messenger." Chi Heiran also knew that the reward was agreed by the two brothers in private, and it was not easy to send a letter, so he agreed. "Then big brother, what are the seals for the second and third brothers?" The smile on the corner of Chi Ziyuan's mouth was faint, and he said, "Anything is fine, I don't want them to use my light to enter politics." "Then it won't be granted," Chi Heiran said distressedly. "To confer a title, you need to confer a lot of land, and there is also a lot of annual salary. This money can do a lot of things. Anyway, they don't have much credit. It also stumbling us a lot." "Since when did you start to feel sorry for money?" Chi Ziyuan wondered. "You have always been generous, but now you know how to save money. Although saving in the wrong direction." As a real brother, Chi Ziyuan can naturally hear that the last reason Chi Heiran said was just a random one, and the latter is the real reason. Even when he saw the distressed appearance of money, he couldn't help but feel distressed. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 567. Because of Chi Ziyuan and Fan Zijin, Chi Heiran is rarely short of money, but it is different when he has a wife and children, especially after having a son. Chi Heiran feels that he is completely poor. He had a lot of things he wanted to give to his son, but a lot of them were stranded because of insufficient money. Most of his money was used for war or to pay for the soldiers who died in battle. But he can't always reach out to Fan Zijin for money, even at other times. At this time, Fan Zijin himself is living a miserable life, and he gives all the money to his elder brother to recruit soldiers, horses, and equipment. He can only draw some small paintings for his son by himself. Things, carve some small animals or something as gifts, save money. Regarding Chi Heiran's savings, Fei Bai felt the most obvious, because he hadn't received a penny from his master for more than a year in a row, and not only the amount of the purse he rewarded had decreased, but even the money in it had decreased. It dropped from 5 taels to 2 taels, and several times, he had to pay his master to make up the shortfall from his own pocket, which shows how poor Chi Heiran is. When Chi Heiran was poor, he deeply felt the difficulty of a penny beating a hero, so he became stingy. He and Chi Shaosheng Chi Saitai didn't have much relationship, and they suffered a lot when they were young. When they were in Linen, he lived in Fan's house most of the time, with Fan Zijin. When going home, he was always bullied by Chi Shaosheng and his brothers, which shows how much he hates them. In addition, he went to Xingzhou Mansion after he was 12 years old, and he didn't have much affection for them. Even when Chi Feng died, he just had a complicated mood, not much sadness, but felt that his heart seemed to be blocked. Like a stone, it will be fine after a few days on the battlefield. Chi Feng, who maintained their relationship, died, and he was even more unwilling to let Chi Shaosheng and Chi Saitai enjoy the achievements of him and his eldest brother. They fought against the country and charged at the front line, but the two of them were always in the rear. In addition, if you can't write a word, you can't do it. Zijin also supported half of the Chi family army's soldiers and horses. The two of them can be divided. No money came out. Just because they are the same father, they can be crowned kings and princes. Thinking of the money spent, Chi Heiran was not happy about anything. Seeing Chi Heiran's puffy face and distressed money, Chi Ziyuan couldn't help laughing, patted him on the shoulder and said, when you return to Beijing, the eldest brother will reward you with a few boxes of gold." Chi Heiran became happy. Big brother means what he says. Chi Ziyuan nodded with a smile. It is impossible for Chi Ziyuan to count, at least in the short term. It is impossible to reward Chi Heiran with a few boxes of gold, because the treasury has no money, and his private treasury except antiques, jewelry, and various utensils that are not easy to be converted into cash. All gold and silver things are taken. I came out to support the army, so there is no gold. Looking at the empty treasury, Chi Ziyuan felt extremely chilled for a moment. He turned his head to look at Zhang Cheng, Minister of the Ministry of Household Affairs. Zhang Cheng knelt down in fear, and said, "Your Majesty, although there is not much money left in the treasury, there was still some before the rebellious second prince ascended the throne, but they took all the money with them when they left. The treasury is now real. I have no money." Chi Ziyuan squinted at him. Zhang Cheng could only present the account book in fear. Chi Ziyuan picked up the account book and said after a while, "I haven't ascended the throne yet, Master Zhang, just call me a general." Seeing Chi Ziyuan's face was cold, Zhang Cheng immediately withdrew his words of flattery, and called out general politely. Chi Ziyuan entered the city yesterday, and the common people lined up to welcome him. He did not live in the palace, but directly lived in the Qi mansion. The next day, he called the officials of the former dynasty, Dezhou, who were still in Linan City to the Chongzheng Palace. "I hope they can help him. Because after the second prince rebelled and ascended the throne, many officials dismissed the court, and Chi Ziyuan chased after the second prince within 2 days after attacking Linan City, so the country has always been paralyzed. Also stayed at home. This time when Chi Ziyuan's class teacher came back, he wanted to reorganize the imperial court and gradually restore order. He has occupied most of the country, but without the management of officials, these lands cannot be called a country, and they are still like a mess of loose sand." Chi Ziyuan had met the officials of the previous court, and sincerely asked them to focus on the national treasury after they became officials. Because how much money means how much he can do. Although there are still many officials who hypocritically did not immediately agree to come out to help, Chi Ziyuan is still in a good mood to visit the treasury. He knows that this is emotion. If he visits the thatched cottage a few more times, those officials will be willing to use it for him, and he is happy to accept it. A name that cherishes beauty. But all the good mood disappeared after opening the treasury. The first thing Chi Heiran looked at was the treasury. The treasury is also divided into many types, including food, money, goods, and utensils. There is also a treasury dedicated to storing various land contracts. There was no money in the purse, not even a penny, as in all purses. There are also 3 types of money banks, one for copper coins, one for official silver, and one for gold. But the 3 kinds of money banks are all empty, the country has no money, and the world is not yet stable. Thinking of so many people displaced by natural disasters and wars, the order is in chaos, and I want to be upright, and I want the people to stop living in peace and cultivate the land. There is no shortage of money. How could Chi Ziyuan not feel chilled looking at the empty money bank? So he could only call Zhang Cheng, the former minister of the household department, but Zhang Cheng did not go to court after the second prince's rebellion, so he didn't know where the money went. He said so, but Chi Ziyuan just felt that he knew that he had been the secretary of the household department for so many years, and that he was regarded as Prime Minister Qin's confidant. Even if he didn't know, he could guess something, right? But Chi Ziyuan suppressed the anger in his heart and kept telling himself that this matter should not be rushed. Chi Ziyuan suppressed his anger in front of Zhang Cheng, but when he returned to the Qi mansion, he couldn't help kicking the table away. The waiter in the room knelt down and took his son's hand to cultivate his relationship. Li Jinghua couldn't help but pause. Seeing that her son was a little frightened, Li Jinghua hurriedly picked him up and patted his back. After thinking about it, she still carried Xiaobao into the house. "Master, what's the matter?" Li Jinghua put Xiaobao down and asked people to pack up the things. Chi Ziyuan took a deep breath, suppressed his anger, shook his head and said, "It's okay." He cast his eyes on his son at his feet, his expression softened, he knelt down to pick up Xiaobao, and asked softly, "Have you had dinner yet?" Xiaobao is actually not that timid. He was spoiled by his mother and aunt since he was a child, and he was accompanied by his bold younger brother, so he is not timid. He was frightened before because he suddenly heard a loud noise and saw his father's face turn livid. That's why, seeing that his father had obviously softened his voice, he gradually became more courageous. He lay on his father's chest and said, "I haven't eaten, wait for daddy." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 568. Chi Xiaoyuan smiled slightly, carried Xiaobao in his arms and went to the flower hall, turned his head and said to Li Jinghua as he walked, "Call the younger siblings and Xiaoxiang over to have dinner together." Li Jinghua was also very happy to see that he and his son got along well, so she quickly agreed with a smile. Cub can already walk unsteadily, and he seems to like the feeling of walking very much, so since he knew how to walk, he is determined not to be hugged, and must walk by himself. Even though Zayahua Courtyard and Zayed Hall are very close, the food will be cold by the time this kid walks over, so Mu Yangling ignores his struggle and walks quickly to the entrance of the flower hall of Zayed Hall, seeing his son's next step. Maybe he was about to cry, and then he was put down. The little bear staggered to the threshold, lying on the whole body, though clumsy, but put on his right leg quickly, turned over the threshold, and waited until the whole body turned over, then straightened up unsteadily and turned towards the little bear. Pogos. Chi Xiaoyuan witnessed the whole process. So, he saw a child with a reddish nose staggering towards him, little treasure in his arms, who was about to cry. Chi Xiaoyuan looked at the size of the little bear, and then at the threshold to his lower chest, and couldn't help frowning. How can the child walk over by himself? Coupled with the aggrieved look of the little bear, it is as if the stepmother forced a child to come over in person. Mu Yangling said, "I carried him to the door and put him down. If we don't let him go through this last section, we won't even be able to eat tonight." Li Jinghua explained from the side, "The little bear's hands and feet are developing rapidly, and he likes to walk. After he can walk, he won't be hugged, even if he is supported, he has to walk by himself." Chi Xiaoyuan looked at him in surprise, and said with a smile, "This kid is like his father, and Heiran was like this when he was a child." The little bear had already walked up to Chi Xiaoyuan, and without looking at him, he directly pulled Xiaobao to point at his mother and chattered. Xiaobao nodded from time to time. No one knew what they were talking about. Chi Xiaoyuan put little treasure on his right knee, picked up little bear and put it on his left knee, and the two children sat facing each other. Little Xiang only looked at Chi Xiaoyuan curiously, and then seemed very satisfied with the sitting posture. The grievance and anger on his face disappeared, and began to pull Xiaobao to talk about other things. Chi Xiaoyuan listened carefully for a long time, but found that he still didn't understand a word. He couldn't help but pinch little bear's face and said, "Little bear, come and call uncle." The little bear barked Popo twice, and when he saw that the adult in front of him still asked him to bark, he suddenly became unhappy, slipped off his legs and ran to his mother. Mu Yangling had long been used to it, and explained to the stunned Chi Xiaoyuan, "Brother, this kid is not patient enough, he only learns a word twice, and he becomes impatient to listen to it if there are too many, and it will take a while before he can learn it again. When will you learn to speak?" Chi Xiaoyuan frowned slightly. "You can't get too used to the child." "Don't worry, big brother," Mu Yangling waved his hand readily, "this kid is just staying, as long as he doesn't pop out to teach him a few words, he won't notice. When I talk to him, I will call myself a mother." He also brought his father, his aunt, and his brother with him when he was in bed. He has heard these words a lot, and he will definitely understand them in the future. Chi Xiaoyuan smiled and didn't bring up the topic again. Under Li Jinghua's arrangement, the servant girl brought the food. Xiaobeo's staple food now is steamed egg custard and some minced meat. He eats it with rice with great relish, and his milk has decreased a lot. Since the cub ate his brother's minced meat secretly, he was no longer willing to breastfeed. Every day he looked at his brother's bowl with tears in his eyes, which made Mu Yangling feel distressed, so he also started to eat some minced meat. Now he insists on eating with a spoon by himself. Qi Xiaoyuan felt that the two children were taught very well. He looked at Xiaobeo, then at Xiaoxiang, and said to Mu Yangling, "When I ascend the throne, Heiran will definitely come back, but the war has not completely subsided. It's not an option for the two of you to be separated from each other for a long time, besides, it's better for little Xiang to stay with his father." Mu Yangling's eyes lit up, and he said excitedly, "Brother, are you going to send us to Heiran's side?" Qi Xiaoyuan choked. He was worried that Mu Yangling would not want to go to those war-torn and bitterly cold places, but now it seems that he was thinking too much. Qi Xiaoyuan paused and said, "It's not going now, but when Heiran comes back, the Qi family army will have to go to him to collect it, and if he leaves Beijing again, he doesn't know when he will come back. The little bear will be 2 years old by then, so he should give it to him. He has a younger brother." Qi Xiaoyuan blushed a little when he said this, because Li Jinghua should have come to talk to Mu Yangling about these things, but at this moment, he was in a hurry, so he could only talk by himself. Qi Xiaoyuan said, "If you don't want to follow when the time comes, you can arrange 2 servants for Heiran." Mu Yangling paused with excitement, and immediately said, "Brother, I am willing to go." His attitude became more determined. Qi Xiaoyuan. Mu Yangling said with a serious expression, "We are a husband and wife, we should advance together and retreat together. Since you have returned to Beijing, then make arrangements first, and you can follow after Heiran comes back to participate in the enthronement ceremony." Qi Xiaoyuan was afraid that if Mu Yangling said he would go there now, in fact, if his younger brother didn't want to take a concubine, he would have preferred Mu. It is safe for Yangling to stay in Linen City. But my younger brother didn't want to take a concubine, and Mu Yangling didn't like his younger brother taking a concubine either. He didn't really want to interfere in the affairs of their husband and wife, so the best way was for Mu Yangling to take his children with the army. Mu Yangling didn't expect such a good thing to happen, and she was very happy. When she was happy, she cared more about Qi Xiaoyuan. "Brother, why are you always frowning today?" Li Jinghua's heart skipped a beat, and she raised her eyes to look at Mu Yangling. Seeing the joy in her brows and eyes, she knew that she was still happy about what happened just now, and she was so happy that she asked about political affairs. Give her a moment to remind her to pay attention. Mu Yangling blinked, a little puzzled. Qi Xiaoyuan didn't notice this, because Mu Yangling often talked about political affairs with them, and he was used to it, so he frowned and told about the emptiness of the treasury. "To organize the imperial court, I am afraid that even 1 year's lumi for officials will not be enough." Li Jinghua also started to worry. Did the taxes from various places be confiscated last year? Every region is in its own way. Taxes have increased a lot for the people, but they are all greedy for themselves. They hold a certain power in their hands. If they are explicitly ordered to hand over, I'm afraid there will be another disturbance. As the situation changed and his position changed, Qi Xiaoyuan's actions would naturally change accordingly. Now that he is the master of this country, there are more things to consider. Have you chosen the day of enthronement? If it's after autumn. No way. Qi Xiaoyuan knew what Li Jinghua meant, and said with a frown, "After I ascend the throne, I will definitely grant an amnesty and exempt the people from taxes so as to give them a chance to recuperate. If we continue to collect taxes as usual, wouldn't we have to go for a long time, the old way?" Mu Yangling nodded repeatedly, and hurriedly asked, "It stands to reason that no matter how much Emperor Jinjian squanders, the treasury can't have no money at all. Could it be that the second prince took him away? But there are only tens of thousands of them." At that time, we invaded Linen. The city also came suddenly, how could he be so fast? The reborn wife is farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 569. At that time, Qi Ziyuan was fully focused on the war, so in the end he only sent 2,000 people to surround the treasury and continued to fight. When he opened the treasury, he also suspected that the soldiers were guarding and stealing, but he quickly dismissed this idea. Those 2,000 soldiers are all trustworthy people, not to mention, there are his confidants among them. They are not familiar with Linen City, and wanting to do these things would make a lot of noise, so it is impossible to do such things. So it can only be that those money banks were empty before he fenced off the treasury. But he also didn't believe that the second prince emptied those things. Just as Mu Yangling said, when he invaded Linen City suddenly, it was impossible for the second prince to prepare in advance. Too much money, that's the rhythm of courting death. He ran after the second prince all the way, knowing their speed. Mu Yangling, it's not the second prince. It must be Emperor Jinjian who hid things, right? But the second prince's rebellion also happened suddenly. Apart from them, who else in the world can just keep the money out of the house quietly, take it out of the money bank? Mu Yangling paused, raised his head and looked at Qi Ziyuan. Li Jinghua also had guesses, hesitantly asked, is it Prime Minister Qin? Qi Ziyuan showed a smile, and said, yes or no, you will know if you copy the Qin family tomorrow. Qin Xiang's sons were all taken away by him, leaving only his daughter, concubines, and unimportant servants in the mansion. Although Qi Ziyuan didn't cut them down, he didn't let them go. He chose an upright and well-versed criminal official who was proficient in the law to interrogate them, and then they were all sent to prison. Now the Prime Minister's mansion is empty. It should be said that Qin Xiang's house under the name of Linen City is all empty. Qi Ziyuan ordered those houses to be turned upside down, digging 3 feet and did not find a single piece of gold. Now even Qi Ziyuan felt something was wrong. Who is Qin Xiang? The most greedy man in the Great Zhou dynasty. His family property is more than the national treasury. How can he have no gold at all? Qi Ziyuan opened the confiscated bill, and saw that there were silks and satins, jewelry, and antiques on it. Dongju alone could search a box. There were countless red and sapphires, and various jades could be placed in a small warehouse alone, but there was no piece of gold. Qi Ziyuan picked up a gold hairpin and asked, is there any gold and silver utensils? Back to the general, there are gold and silver jewelry, but some big gold and silver artifacts are all gone. Check. Qi Ziyuan dropped the things in his hands and said, they left the capital in a hurry. It is impossible to take away so much gold and silver. They must still be in Linen City. However, the officials of the Ministry of Punishment continued to torture the people left behind by Prime Minister Qin, and they also asked about their useful value every year. The important people were taken away by Prime Minister Qin, and the unimportant people who knew the inside story were also destroyed by Prime Minister Qin. They really don't know. The pauper Qi Ziyuan's complexion became more and more ugly. Li Jinghua said tentatively one night, Master, the family is rich. Qi Ziyuan was silent for a long time, and finally nodded slightly. Li Jinghua breathed a sigh of relief and would not ask any more questions in the future, but she knew that the family might be completely lost in the future. Emperor Shizong of the Great Zhou dynasty tried his best to suppress the aristocratic family, and Jiaozong gradually recovered after 100 years of cultivation. Their Li family has been misnamed for a long time. They only have appearances but no reality. Soon, other aristocratic families may be like their Li family. Li Jinghua wanted to write a letter to ask her father and brother to come over, but after thinking about it, she temporarily suppressed the matter. Her father is not in good health, and her brother is disabled, so coming here doesn't help much. Why bother to bother them? Maybe Qi Ziyuan found another way. Anyway, he didn't pay much attention to the treasury theft case, and after several groups of people turned Qin Xiangfu inside and out again, he waved his hand and said, "Qin Xiangfu, stay here, wait for Heiran to come back and give him the palace." Rong Xian had no objections, and the other ministers had no objections either. Not to mention that Qi Heiran is Qi Xiaoyuan's biological younger brother. Even if he now has hundreds of thousands of troops in his hands, he has contributed half of the country to Qi Xiaoyuan, and he deserves this honor. Everyone is concerned about another question: "General, when will you and your wife move into the palace? Although you are not enthroned now, it is better to enter the palace earlier." Qi Xiaoyuan still lives in the Qi mansion until now, and he came to the palace to deal with government affairs every day. The ministers felt tired after seeing him, and were afraid that something would happen to him during the journey from the palace to the Qi mansion. Qi Xiaoyuan paused and said, "Let Qin Tianjian choose a good day, the palace won't be used so much, then seal it up, and only open what we use." So someone took advantage of the trend and proposed to add new people to the palace, such as eunuchs and maids, should be replaced with new ones, and there are many palace maids and eunuchs who escaped before, so they should be increased appropriately. It should also be increased by 1 or 2. Qi Xiaoyuan still only has one wife, Li Jinghua, 2 concubines, and no concubine. Everyone knows that if he can become Qi Xiaoyuan's concubine at this time, then after he ascends the throne, the concubine will definitely get a big position. Qi Xiaoyuan hated other people meddling in his family affairs, so he pretended that he didn't understand, and said, "Ask someone to repair Qin Xiang's mansion. When Heiran comes back, he can move in directly." So everyone's attention was shifted again. Qi Heiran moved in as soon as he came back, and the plaque must be replaced, which involves meritorious deeds and rewards, which is a big problem, even bigger than Qi Xiaoyuan's harem. After Qi Xiaoyuan came back, Mu Yangling knew that she had got a big house. She asked curiously, "I heard that Qin Xiang's mansion is better than the prince's mansion, and the specifications are even higher than the prince's mansion, isn't it?" Qi Xiaoyuan nodded. "It's not just 1 or 2 things that Qin Xiang violated the rules. Emperor Jingyan doesn't mind such trivial things." "But brother, don't you want to make Heiran the county king? This is beyond the prince." Li Jinghua's heart skipped a beat, and she hurriedly smiled and said, "It's good to separate out a few pieces of land. Can't we get through when the 4th uncle becomes a prince? With the relationship between Qi Xiaoyuan and Qi Heiran, becoming a prince is only a matter of time thing." Qi Xiaoyuan smiled and said, "It doesn't need to be so troublesome, the extra part is for Heiran to build a training ground." Mu Yangling disagreed, and said with a stern face, "This is not good, you have to follow the rules, big brother. Heiran is your younger brother, only if he obeys, the people below will be more scrupulous, otherwise if you violate the rules first, can't other heroes follow suit? Heiran belongs to the royal family, so he must be more tolerant than others. This is the default rule all the time." But because it is a hidden rule, Mu Yangling doesn't like it even more. "Brother, what I said to abide by is not only for outsiders, but also for our Qi family, including Xiaobao, Xiaoxiang, and future descendants of the Qi family." The great Zhou declined sharply after Emperor Sejong. Was it because he indulged the royal children too much, so that no one became a talent, and there was not much talent, but the power and money were restrained a lot, so that the order collapsed, and the foreign invasion was powerless to resist? Instead, point fingers at the border guards. "Heiran is your younger brother, it is right for you to pamper him as an elder brother, but the rewards and gifts are the status of a king. Then Heiran is your subject, he should abide by the rules." The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 570. No matter how deep the relationship is, if you take more than you give, there will always be a time when it will be exhausted, and the relationship depends on the heart. It is too ethereal. Mu Yangling prefers to define the scope of some behaviors and institutionalize them. What can be done and what can't be done, both parties must be aware of it, so that they don't have to try it out, let alone squander their feelings because of blindness. Chi Xiuyuan and Chi Heiran have a good relationship, so she doesn't want their brothers to have a estrangement one day. Chi Xiuyuan suddenly felt a little uncomfortable. He still put himself in the position of his father and brother. Before he changed his identity, Mu Yangling suddenly lowered his voice and said, "Brother, Heiran is not the only relative of the emperor." Mu Yangling looked at Xiang Dongfu. "Let's take Heiran as the younger brother to set an example first." Chi Xiuyuan frowned and felt better, but he listened to Mu Yangling's words and planned to negotiate the system later. In this case, if you have time, go to Qin Xiang's mansion to see which is the best place to separate, and then tell the Ministry of Industry to let them do it. Chi Xiuyuan was slightly embarrassed when he said this. Qin Xiang's mansion is full of potholes now. Anyway, it's going to be overhauled once. When you go to see what needs to be revised, write it down and hand it over to the Ministry of Industry. Chi Xiuyuan said that if you dig 3 feet into the ground, you have to dig out the things. Although you didn't dig out the things, you did dig 3 feet into the ground. Even the floor of the house was pried up. Mu Yangling stood at the door and looked in, sighing, "How much will it cost to fix it?" Mu Yang's aura felt distressed when he thought about that number. This was the case in the entire Qin Xiang mansion. The open space in the yard, the flowers in the flower beds, and the bluestone slabs on the ground were also pried up. Mu Yangling walked back with the little bear, who was unwilling to leave her, and said to the accompanying Ministry of Industry, "I remember that there is a large open space in the northwest corner. Take me to have a look. If it is suitable, take the space next to it. Come out." The secretary of the Ministry of Industry hurriedly led Mu Yangling over respectfully. It took 3/4 of an hour to walk from the main room to the northwest corner. Mu Yangling felt that even if she moved in, she would not have time to go around the house every day. This was only half of the diagonal. The northwest corner is a garden. It should be said that along the direction of the small stream, the entire route should be a garden. Because there is a courtyard in the middle, the Qin mansion has 1 large garden and 3 small gardens. This northwest corner is the largest one. Once upon a time, this was the Qin mansion garden that everyone envied. The rare flower species in it were second only to the imperial palace garden, but now, the entire garden has been upturned, and more than half of the bluestone slabs that go deep into the garden have been pried up. Mu Yangling put the little bear on the ground, squeezed the soil with his hands, and said very pertinently, "This land is very fertile. If it is used for farming, even if the weather is not good, there will be a good harvest with this small stream." The clerk of the Ministry of Industry was dumbfounded. But Li Chun said with a smile, "If Grandma is not willing, we won't cut this piece. Don't we still have 2 corners? The big deal is to divide the yards on the west side. We have few people in our house, and we can't live in so many. Man, the northwest corner is so big, and there are streams and rivers, it can just be used for Grandma to practice hands." Seeing that Mu Yangling's heart was moved, Li Shun continued, "Otherwise, if you have an idea, you have to go to the Zhuangzi again, and it will take a lot of time. Why don't you set up the experimental field at home?" Mu Yangling stroked his chin and said, "In this way, the county palace will become a farm, and your master will scold me to death when you come back. Let's talk about it later when I discuss it with him." Mu Yangling saw that the little bear had already started to climb up the overturned bluestone slab, and the nurse could barely hold him, so she stepped forward to lift him up and said, "It's dirty, why are you climbing up there?" The little bear didn't make a sound, but stretched his hands and pulled it there vigorously. Mu Yangling saw that he was stubborn, so he could only lift the bluestone slab away with his hands and let him walk over. The little bear learned to be smart, and after walking a few steps, he was blocked by a bluestone slab, so he turned his head to look at his mother. Mu Yangling twitched the corner of his mouth, and wanted to see when he could go, so he stepped forward and took the bluestone slab aside. The clerk of the Ministry of Industry held a small writing brush and looked at Mu Yangling dumbfounded, the bluestone slab in his hand. After the person in front walked a certain distance, he secretly reached out and tried it, but the bluestone slab didn't move at all. The clerk of the Ministry of Industry wiped away the mud and silently followed behind everyone. The little bear seemed to like this game. After walking a few steps, he looked back at his mother and asked her to move the bluestone slab away. Mu Yangling has also been very cooperative. Anyway, she has a lot of time and doesn't mind playing with her son for a while, but after picking up a bluestone slab, Mu Yangling's face changed slightly. She picked up the bluestone slab that she had just put down and shook it, then turned around and picked up another piece of bluestone that shook its weight. After thinking about it, Mu Yangling stepped forward to try a few more pieces, then stared at the bluestone slab on the ground and became dazed. On the way, Little Bear came across another bluestone slab. Seeing that his mother was too late to move it away, he ran back angrily and grabbed her by the corner of her clothes, pointing at the slab and yelling, "Ah!" Mu Yangling smiled and said, "Son, will mother take you to hunt for treasure?" Little Bear tilted his head and looked at her suspiciously. Mu Yangling pinched a bluestone slab, and with a slight force in his hand, the slab cracked several times. Amidst the wide mouths of everyone, Mu Yangling took the broken stone slab away. Only about 2 centimeters thick gravel the board was taken down, revealing the bright yellow color inside. Li Chun's eyes widened, and the notepad in the hand of the clerk of the Ministry of Industry fell to the ground with a snap. Mu Yangling cleaned up the gravel on the surface, and a gold plate appeared in front of everyone. Mu Yangling handed it to Little Bear, and said with a smile, "How about it, is this a baby?" Little Xiong looked at the golden slab, curled his lips in disgust, turned around and went to find the dusty slate, yelling off for someone to move it away. When Zhang Cheng, Minister of the Household Department, brought people over, Mu Yangling had already knocked open 2 stone slabs, which were filled with gold. Mu Yangling couldn't help but lament Qin Xiang's wisdom. "It's really safe to hide this thing here." Qi Ziyuan had someone pry up all the bluestone slabs. When the house is repaired later, these things will definitely be shipped out and replaced with new ones. At that time, he only needs to ask someone to buy the old stone slabs, and he doesn't even need to transport the gold out of Linen City. Mu Yangling handed over the matter to Zhang Cheng, who came here, and was about to go back after picking up the little bear, leaving the work of smashing stone slabs to the people below. The next day, everyone in Linen City knew that Mu Yangling, who had gone to see the new house in advance, found the gold left by Prime Minister Qin. Now everyone felt more than envy and jealousy, and almost hated it. This must be good luck. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 571. Qin Xiang melted gold and silver into slabs, and then forged bluestone slabs to spread on the back garden. This topic instantly overshadowed the topic of Qi Ziyuan's ascension to the throne, and became the freshest topic in Linen City, and even in the whole of Jiangnan. When it comes to who is better at hiding money, Prime Minister Qin must be number one. There are quite a few gold and silver pieces found, but the amount embezzled by Prime Minister Qin is still much lower. In addition to the missing money in the treasury, it is even less. But they knocked down all the stone slabs in the Qin Xiang's mansion and couldn't find any more. If they kept searching, the whole Qin Xiang's mansion would have to be demolished and rebuilt, which would cost a lot of money. Qi Ziyuan only thought about it for a while before letting people back. This time, he took the initiative to let people separate the few small courtyards to the west of Prime Minister Qin's mansion, and use the rest as Qi Heiran's county palace, which is considered a joint system. Qin Tianjian has already calculated the good days, and Qi Ziyuan will be officially enthroned on June 18, and there are still 4 months to go. Although Qi Ziyuan has not officially ascended the throne, he has gradually mastered handling state affairs. Just as Qi Ziyuan was in full swing preparing for the enthronement ceremony, the news that Qin Ziyongfu found a large amount of gold and silver also spread to the border, and the news that the treasury was emptied. The second prince laughed a few times when he heard the news, then dropped the paper in his hand, got up and said, let's go, and see our lord Qin Xiang." Seeing the second prince's smile, the servant felt cold in his heart, and hurriedly followed. The camp was a bit chaotic, some papers were scattered from the air from time to time, a group of guards searched for those inspiring papers, although those who hid the papers were executed in public, many people still hid them privately. Someone is high density, and up to now, everyone has begun to hide from each other. When the soldiers saw the second prince coming out, they hid aside one after another. The second prince walked past them without turning their eyes. Qin Xiang shredded a ball of paper, and threw it into the fire with no expression on his face to burn it. When the second prince opened the curtain and came in, what he saw was Qin Xiang staring at the brazier with his face submerged in the water. The second prince twitched the corners of his mouth, sat opposite Qin with a big thorn, raised his head and said, "Master Xiang, you took the money missing from the treasury." The second prince did not use interrogative sentences, but declarative sentences. Qin Xiang lowered his eyes, took a sip of tea, and said, "Your Majesty, at this time we should work together to resist the Qi family's conspiracy." "Master Xiang thinks we still have a chance to win," the second prince interrupted him, saying, "The Western Xia army has all withdrawn, and their strength has been restrained by the kingdom of Jin." The second prince sneered, "At the beginning, the Prime Minister led the Xixia soldiers into Beijing and tricked me into rebelling. It must be because he didn't expect the Jin dynasty to attack Xixia, but let the Qi family brothers take advantage of it instead." Qin Xiang's face was slightly ugly. "But that's not important anymore. I'm just curious to ask where you hid all the money. The news I got is that the amount of gold and silver that Qi Ziyuan dug up from the mansion is not right." Qin Xiang didn't speak. The second prince waited for a long time, then sneered, and said, "Forget it, I just wanted to satisfy my curiosity. Anyway, I asked for the money, and I don't need to spend it, but," the second prince lowered his face, "although I can't spend it, but it doesn't mean that I allow others to deceive me, or even steal my property." The second prince looked at the servant, who stepped forward tremblingly, took out a small medicine bottle from his sleeve and put it on the table tremblingly. The second prince smiled and said, "This is what my father used back then. Well, I have prepared a copy for myself, but I want to see Prime Minister Qin walk ahead of me." Qin Xiang lowered his face and looked at the second prince gloomily. The second prince said calmly, "The camp is in chaos. It is impossible for me to really take my soldiers from Dazhu to Xixia to be second-class people, so I still have to kill myself, all right, but I'm afraid that I won't be able to explain to my father when I see him on the road, so I can only trouble Prime Minister Qin to go with me." Qin Xiang raised his head and looked outside. The second prince sat still. After a while, a general stepped in, knelt down and said, "Go back to the emperor, the treason in the camp has been eradicated." The second prince waved him to go down, and turned to look at Qin Xiang. Qin Xiang's hand holding the teacup couldn't help tightening. He took a deep breath and sighed, "Your Majesty, why is this so? You are now the only blood of the Guo family. Qi Ziyuan's attempt to usurp power was planned from the very beginning. All right, as long as we reveal the truth to the world, all the generals will definitely come to serve the king. If the emperor is not at ease, you can ask the ministers to persuade them." The second prince only thought that Prime Minister Qin was joking. If there was no warning from Emperor Jingyan before his death, maybe he would be willing to go to Western Xia with Prime Minister Qin to wait for a comeback. But he knew that all this was just his trick. If he went to Xixia, he might die without a place to bury him. The second prince is afraid of death, but even more afraid of dying in a foreign country without dignity. In that case, it is better to let him end his own life. After coming out of Prime Minister Qin's tent, the second prince looked at the messy camp and sighed towards the sky. He didn't know if the brothers of the Qi family planned their rebellion long ago, or if they were forced by him as they said. I know that the blood of the Guo family was cut off because of him. When the second prince was about to die, Qi Heiran was squatting on the ground, pulled out a potato from the fire, simply peeled off a layer of skin and stuffed it in his mouth. He breathed out and asked, "What else do we have, how much food?" 3 days, General, let's attack in. Surrounding is not an option. Our food and grass are about to run out. I heard that the treasury has no money now. Qi Heiran rolled his eyes, and said, "Did we have a treasury in the war before?" "Why not?" He stuffed 2 potatoes into his stomach, and then he felt a little better in his stomach. He said, "Wait a little longer, wait, didn't you see that the other side is in chaos? If it can reduce casualties, I'm willing to wait 2 more days and ask them to write more lists and spread them over there, and all the soldiers who escaped will be received and resettled separately." The adjutant muttered, "I haven't seen anyone come here these days." As a result, at night, a person with a small flag ran over from there, put down his weapon at the gate of the camp and raised his hands in a gesture of surrender. The people from the Qi family army brought them back and arranged them separately, but it turned out that it was like an opening. 6 times people came to surrender in one night. I thought there would definitely be trouble on the other side the next day. Who knew that it was still as messy as before, but nothing major happened. In the evening, they received a lot of troops who escaped. Qi Heiran asked them one by one, and he always felt that something was wrong, but he didn't remember it after sleeping all night. It was only when I went out of the tent the next day to have breakfast that I remembered that the soldiers who came here said that the second prince and Prime Minister Qin hadn't been out of the tent for a day and a night, and they hadn't seen anyone bring food in. They just felt that there was not much food and grass. That's it, and then ran to the side in a hurry. Qi Heiran also stuffed a black-faced steamed bun into his mouth, and said, "Call all the generals, hurry up." At noon that day, the Qi family army, which had been silent for more than half a month, brazenly attacked the second prince's army, but captured the camp half an hour later, and captured 48,658 people. He had died in his tent for 2 days. The reborn wife is farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 572. The second prince died, and there was an edict of guilt and a letter beside him. Qi Heiran looked at it, and asked someone to search the camp. Only then was he sure that all the confidants of the second prince had left. "General, give your subordinates 500 horses, and your subordinates will definitely be able to chase him back." Qi Heiran waved his hand and said, "Don't chase after them, let them go, block the news, and don't let outsiders know that Qin Xiang and the second prince committed suicide." For the time being, after finishing speaking, he put away the letter and edict. Once the second prince dies, the rest of the Chengdu mansion will be recovered. Qi Heiran only needs to bring a large army to the gate of the city, and the county magistrate inside will open the gate and welcome people in. After he walked through the rest of the county and left the soldiers stationed, he brought the rest of the army back to the court. The news of the second prince and Prime Minister Qin's death had already spread to Linan City and all over the country. The bandits in Zhongling Mansion considered it for a long time, and finally surrendered. At this point, the territory of the Great Zhou dynasty after fleeing south was considered to be stable. Qi Ziyuan threw out several edicts in a row to let the displaced people return to their hometowns or resettle on the spot. The land can be distributed and tax-free for 3 years. It is forbidden to keep hermits in captivity. Once a hermit is found in captivity, all his property will be confiscated and relocated. The latter one is for the aristocratic family and the rich, because only they can keep hermits in captivity. Zhang Cheng and other officials think this move is too radical, and the 3-year tax exemption period is too long. You must know that the 3-year survey by Chi Ziyuan is nationwide, and it is only the most basic. In some poor places, the tax exemption period has reached 5 years. In 2009, the national treasury had no money, and the country's income mainly came from farmers paying taxes. 3 years of tax exemption was equivalent to the loss of nearly 2/3 of the national treasury's income within 3 years. Income is down, but spending is up. Reconstruction after the war is not just a matter of talk, it requires a lot of manpower and material resources. And both of these require money. Chi Ziyuan was being irritated by this complicated state affairs, and said impatiently, "The imperial court has always banned hermits, so I didn't realize there was anything wrong with this." After saying that, he sneered, "I know that some wealthy families are used to keeping them in captivity. Hidden household, as soon as the edict comes out, it's okay for them to stop honestly. If they dare to turn a blind eye, or worsen the situation, anyway, the treasury is also short of money. It is to continue colluding with the rich and powerful to help hide the hidden households, and all be headed for public display." After Chi Ziyuan said these words with a full of hostility, he shook his sleeves and left. Zhang Cheng and the others were captured by Chi Ziyuan's hostility, and only recovered after they left. They didn't expect Chi Ziyuan to be so stubborn, and they looked at each other with a little worry, fearing that Chi Ziyuan had just passed the crisis, and the country that had just settled down would be in chaos again. But who knows that there is someone in this world with a bigger temper and a stronger temper than Chi Ziyuan. Before Chi Ziyuan's words were suppressed by Zhang Cheng and others, Chi Heiran caused a big incident in Zhongling Mansion. Because of the surrender of the bandits in Zhongling Mansion, Chi Ziyuan asked Chi Heiran, who was returning to the imperial court, to go there to recruit those bandits, and then return to Beijing. Anyway, he won't be enthroned until June, so it's still early. Chi Heiran's incorporation work went smoothly. After leaving a part of the garrison army, he continued to walk to Linan City with the bandit army and his own army after the incorporation. From Zhongling Mansion to Linan City, you have to go through Dongting Lake, which is a rich and beautiful place. Coincidentally, Chi Heiran and the others happened to be stationed at that place when they stopped again. Everything inside was green, and the fertile soil was covered with farmland for thousands of miles, but Chi Heiran didn't bother to look at the scene that heralded a good harvest, because he was in a hurry to go to the city to find gifts for Mu Yangling and the child. Ever since he asked the class teacher to return to court, he has been worrying about what gifts to give to Mu Yangling and the children, but he has been dragging it on until now because he has no money and no ideas. But he is rich now, because the bandit leader bribed him when he recruited bandits 2 days ago. Although the money was not much, there was still 5,000 taels. Chi Heiran accepted it happily, and then went to the city to buy things with the money, but he couldn't find a suitable one in Zhongling Mansion. This time he was stationed outside Dongting County. Hearing that the things inside were very good, Chi Heiran went into the city with Fei Bai and 2 guards in casual clothes and with money in his pocket. The key point is in casual clothes. It was getting late after Chi Heiran had bought the gifts, and the city gate was closed, thinking that he had to let the token open the city gate anyway, so he might as well stay and have a meal to comfort his stomach. You know, he hasn't eaten any good food for more than a year. Chi Heiran brought Fei Bai and 2 guards into the box and ordered a table of meat, and when he was eating, he heard the sound of the box next door. Chi Heiran also knew that he must have been tricked, otherwise it would be such a coincidence. He just entered a box, and the next door was discussing a secret matter. The wooden board of the box was broken without any trace, and the sound was just enough for him to hear. Chi Heiran has internal skills, and the skills are profound, and his hearing has always been better than ordinary people, but not many people know about it. Chi Heiran put down his chopsticks, and pondered for a while with a sullen face. Seeing that Fei Bai and the 2 guards were looking at him tremblingly, he waved his hands indifferently and said, "Continue to eat, and go do something important with the master after eating. Chi Heiran said that doing big things is big things. After the four of them had eaten and drank enough, Chi Heiran led someone into the next box, tied up the three people inside, pushed away the shopkeeper who stepped forward to stop him, jumped on the horse, and said in a low voice. He ordered, "Get out of the city immediately." Chi Heiran has a token, so he can enter and leave any city at will. Their speed is unexpected and fast. Before the opponent has time to react, Chi Heiran has asked someone to open the gate of the small city, led them out, and returned to the Chi family army. No one can do anything not him. Chi Heiran threw the people to the ground, looked at them gravely, then turned to Fei Bai and said, "Ask someone you can trust to watch them, if they die, you don't have to live." Fei Bai shuddered, and quickly called Chi Heiran's confidant, and separated the three of them to watch over them, and no one was allowed to come near them. Chi Heiran returned to the tent with an ugly expression, and called his adjutant, "Order the soldiers and horses, tomorrow we will go to Kui's house, I want to see how rich this family is." Chi Heiran doesn't know how to play tricks, and he's not all smart, but that doesn't mean he's stupid. Why would he use his weaknesses to do what others are good at? Master is not a puppet, since he dares to plot against Master, he must have the ability to withstand accidents. One of the arrested people has been waiting to be interrogated, but as time passed, he found that no one came to interrogate him, and he didn't even see Chi Heiran's face again. His face became more and more ugly, and he struggled to watch him people. But his hands and feet were bound, and his mouth was stuffed with cloth strips. Not only could he not move or speak, he couldn't even commit suicide.